Man, man, that was a close one. Certainly scary for any Spartan fans like myself. Didn't quite think we were going to pull it off, to tell you the truth. And then we have that punt return from God, really from Jayden Reed. But at this point, there's no difference between the two. Gets some defensive stops, heading to overtime, big time pick, hit a field goal, and thank God we were able to come out the woodshed with the victory. I am Ryan from the Sports Carnage podcast. Go check out the podcast if you guys haven't. We have our Facebook link in the description here on this video. And if you're watching on YouTube afterwards, after we do this live show, it'll be in the description below. So the Michigan State Nebraska game, again on the edge of your seat, really the whole game, because it was back and forth the whole way. There was never a point where you felt like the game was getting out of hand. It was always just one or two plays away from the lead switching hands. And for Michigan State, what you probably were concerned with the most was the play of Peyton Thorne, because he really didn't play well at all, and neither did Kenneth Walker, the Doak Walker, and until at least last game. This game will probably knock him out of it. Maybe not, but kind of early Heisman contender, and neither of them played well. I thought Thorne particularly missed a lot of throws that he was making in the first few games, and a lot of throws in crucial spots. And that's part of the reason why I didn't think that we were going to be able to get it done at the end. But like I said, the punt return from Jayden Reed kind of flipped everything, and then even the drive after that, I thought Thorne made some pretty poor throws. Luckily, the defense was able to step up, and the punter too. Is it Hartbarger? Is that how you say his name? A huge game from him, really. And typically, you don't talk about a punter. I'm sorry, Barringer, having a really big game. Typically you don't talk about punters having great games like that, but he was his punting was magnificent. He averaged just under 59 yards a punt, which is insane. So 6 punts for 353 yards, and we needed every single one of those yards and every single one of those punts to keep our defense able to kind of keep Nebraska out of the end zone. Why would they? Let me go back up. They should not be ranked next week. Well, I mean, yes, they should. They're 4-0. They're one of the handful of 4-0 teams in the country, and they've beaten 3 Power 5 teams now. And for the first 3 weeks, they looked really, really good. This win shouldn't knock them out of the top 25 ranking. Go green. Sorry, go white. Lucky. There's probably a bit of luck to it. I thought the Jayden Reed punt return, it was a really bad punt by Nebraska. It was like a line drive. There was nobody really on that side of the field covering it, and it went straight to him. It was almost like a interception return more than it was a punt return. Thank you, sweet Jesus, for getting that interception. Yeah, that was a big one too. I thought when he got the interception, the game was over. I didn't expect him to be chased down from behind, but he was. And then Kenneth Walker obviously had that big run to get down to like the 3-yard line, and then from there, it's just a chip shot field goal. If State drops out of the rankings, U of M should as well. I think they're both going to be solidly in the rankings still. Probably should have lost. Punt return won the game. The punt return absolutely did win the game. I could say this, my fellow Spartans. I have not felt this way about a Spartan team in a while. We are special. The next few years under Coach Mel will be special. I agree about the future. I think Michigan State's in good hands with Mel Tucker. I don't know that this year is going to be one of those, special years. And like if you were hype about the first 3 games, I can understand. But this game, this wasn't a game where you watched and you said, oh, that team on the field was special. Now, they got it done, and they beat a Nebraska team that's probably pretty bad, but they did, take Oklahoma kind of to the brink last week, and only lost by a touchdown to a team that was number 3 in the country, but Oklahoma's in another close game now against West Virginia, so they're probably not not really a top 5 team. But Nebraska played them close, obviously, and being able to beat Nebraska, the transitive property doesn't really work in sports. But if that was something you're going to look at, I guess you could if you wanted to prop Nebraska up. But for me, that's not necessarily something that I will be looking at. I'm really just happy they got the win. I thought the defense it struggled in points overall. It played pretty well, but just kind of trying to contain Adrian Martinez. I thought he missed a lot of throws that were open. So, if he makes those throws, the defensive numbers for us probably look way worse than they do. And even the running game, Nebraska almost ran for 200 yards. They ran the ball a bunch of times. They ran it almost 50 times for just about 4 yards a carry. But I was a little bit concerned with what I saw from our defense, but they stepped up when they needed to, especially after that punt return touchdown that we had. One of my fears was I was obviously happy we tied the game, but Nebraska just went on a drive before that and scored, and I thought the defense might be gassed, not getting any type of break. You have a punt return, and they score kind of immediately. But, they were able to get a stop after that, and then they were able to get a stop, in the last 40-ish seconds of the game. And then obviously they had the interception in overtime. So they stepped up when they needed to. But overall, there were concerns, at least for me, both offense and defense today. But that is the mark of a team that's, at least not terrible, right? To be able to win some games like this where you don't look your best and kind of regardless of opponent, if you don't play well on offense or defense and you're able to still come away with a victory, a conference victory no less, it is something to build upon, and obviously overall it's a positive thing. We have here, point is, Spartans pulled it out. Nail-biting game, absolutely. The win was ugly, sure was. Thorne was pretty awful in the second half. Yeah, man, he played obviously worse than we had seen all year. He threw his first pick this year on the Spartans' first drive, and throughout the game, he just never seemed like he was, he was really able to get into it. The touchdown pass he threw to, I believe it was to Reed, was a beautiful touchdown. Beautiful throw. The defender fell down, but I think even if he didn't fall down, the ball was placed, so well that Reed probably still scores. But outside of that, yeah, he played, in my opinion, pretty poorly. He missed a couple throws. I thought there were some spots where he could have picked up some yards with his legs, and he didn't. He either threw it out of bounds, or he made a poor throw that resulted in an incompletion. But, I still believe in him as a quarterback. If that's something that, he'll get better at. They'll obviously look at the game tape, and I'm sure he'll see what we all saw watching the game and be able to make some adjustments so that those mistakes are, fewer and far between in the future. Reed was big all night for us. Yeah, Reed had not only did he catch the touchdown, he scored our only 2 touchdowns. He had the punt return and then the touchdown catch. So that was a big game from Jayden Reed. That's what you want from your best players, right? You want them to have big games and big moments in big time spots. And Reed was able to do that tonight. Kenneth Walker had a really rough night, but he did have what was essentially the game-winning run in overtime. Running for 23 yards on the opening play of the overtime, at least for us, because obviously we got the interception. But on Michigan State's first play in overtime, he ran for 23 yards and was able to get into position where we had a chip shot field goal. But overall, rough game for him, and rough game for, again, really everybody. But that kind of makes the win sweeter. When you look at the game and it's a game, you probably at some point thought you were going to lose. when Nebraska was up 20-13 in the fourth quarter, and we didn't score on the drive like right after they scored, and it's a pretty deflating feeling, and just because of kind of how they're able to pick up their yards and pick up their plays. Michigan State 1 for 10 for third down. So for Nebraska, who only went 7-19, that's not great. But when you compare that to what you saw, Michigan State going, the 1 for 10, it's really not even comparable. So it makes Nebraska seem like the 7-19 is the greatest thing in the world. Nebraska also 2 for 2 on fourth down, which again is just a backbreaker really. And I know we had the one 3rd and 10 where it looked like that Jayden Reed had caught it, but the ball hit the ground. So that ended up getting turned back. And there was just a lot of things from the Michigan State side that I think they could have got deflated about time after time. But I mean, credit to them, they showed resiliency obviously to get the game into overtime and then make the big plays that were needed in overtime in order to win it. But if you look at if you just looked at the box score, you would really wonder how Michigan State was able to win this game. So you had the first down advantage 26-12 in Nebraska's favor. Total yards 440 to 254, again in Nebraska's favor. The penalties, Nebraska did have more penalties than us. They had 7 penalties for 50 yards. We had 4 for 34. And Nebraska did have one more turnover. Obviously, the backbreaker being the interception, because the first one that they had, the fumble, we weren't able to do anything with, which was really another almost sign that we would lose, because you had the fumble and then you weren't able to capitalize on it. And just again, another one of those kind of deflating sequences where that a mentally weaker team, that would have killed them right there. That would have lost them the game. But again, credit to Michigan State. They showed some mental toughness, even if they didn't play or execute as well as they wanted to. They never thought that the game was out of reach, and that's a credit to them. It's a credit to the coaching staff and the culture that the program's trying to build. Another one for any time of possession freaks out there. Nebraska 37 minutes to Michigan State's 23, basically. It's a little bit skewed by the punt return for a touchdown. That could have been 3, 4, however many minutes added to Michigan State. But still, just kind of another sign. Or if you just looked at the box score, you would have thought Nebraska dominated the game. Concerns about the O-line, or is Nebraska's D-line that good? I mean, there's concerns about the O-line because there was last year. And, they shuffled around the O-line a bit, so it is better. You placed, obviously got Jarvis, I believe, is the transfer. And then that allowed them to shift one of their linemen that was here last year to, I believe, to one of the guard spots, where he's much better than he'd be, than if he was playing tackle. But there is still concerns about the offensive line for me. And I think when you get into some of these Big Ten teams that have a better defensive line, it'll be a little bit rougher. I don't think the offensive line is bad, but I don't know that they're as great as you kind of saw in the first 3 weeks, with tons of holes being opened up, and Kenneth Walker doing a lot of work, and even a lot of Kenneth Walker's yards. He leads I think he led the nation in a bunch of broken tackle stats and yards after contact, where not that that's a demerit to your offensive line, but if your running back's getting hit and then going for a bunch of yards, it's probably because somebody got to him close to the line of scrimmage and he was just able to shake him off. Or I'm sure we all know the couple plays against Miami, where it looked like Kenneth Walker would be down for a 4-yard loss, and then he's able to make it an 8-9 yard gain, which again is more of a credit to him than it is the offensive line, but it obviously helps boost the offensive line's rushing numbers. Should have replaced Thorne. No, I don't think you replaced Peyton Thorne. You made the decision that this is your quarterback this year, and he obviously played really well through the first 3 weeks, as good really as any quarterback in the country had played through the first 3 weeks. And just because he was having a rough game today, I don't think you replace him. I think you got to stick with him. Win, lose, or draw. That's your guy for the season. Unless he just becomes unplayable and he has 2 or 3 games where he's really, really bad, and then you think Russo is a better option to lead the team. I think you stick it out with Peyton Thorne. And these teams play very similar to me. I'd say yes and no. I think Nebraska is probably a little bit more. I don't know. I don't want to say Nebraska is more versatile in offense, but I think just the byproduct of Nebraska having an Adrian Martinez at quarterback makes them play different than what Michigan State does. Because there's obviously a larger threat of Martinez rushing than there is Peyton Thorne. Now you could say a running play is a running play, but it's way different when there's kind of always that option of run or pass. And you even saw a couple times with Nebraska tonight where there was like a read option, and I actually really liked this play call. It didn't really hurt Michigan State or do well for Nebraska in this case, but it was like a pitch. But there was also the option to throw it downfield if Martinez said something, or throw it not even necessarily pitch it, but like throw a screen to a receiver that was just kind of sitting on the side if the pitch wasn't there and if he thought he was covered. So I thought that was a really unique play design, and one that I really liked. And if you have an athlete like Adrian Martinez at quarterback, it's obviously something that you can get away with. So I wouldn't necessarily say the teams play similar. Both are going to be more run heavy, or would like to be, run heavy. But I think overall, just because of the dynamic that Nebraska has at quarterback, they play a little bit differently. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Peyton Thorne, you're ever really worried about him, taking off and running. Not that he can't, because he's mobile. He's just not, Adrian Martinez as a rusher. So that'd be my take on that. What else? Did anything else really stand out to me? Not necessarily, but one of the other things, right, is Jayden Reed had a long kick return too, and that's something that I noticed after the first game against Northwestern when we came on here and we did the same thing. The Facebook reaction show was it looked like the return game was way better this year. Whether it was Reed or Naylor. And it seemed like in every game so far, maybe not the Miami game. I was at a wedding last week, so I was only able to watch, bits and pieces of the Michigan State-Miami game. But at least in all the other games, and obviously this game, saved the game, right? There's either like a big kick or a punt return that was able to, help Michigan State out. And I do think that that's been a big reason why they've been able to, get off to the start and bury the first 3 teams. Obviously, today was a nail-biter. But when you're starting drives and instead of on the 25 or the 20, you're at like the 40 or 45 or even on, the opponent's side of the field, that's obviously a big boost, and it takes a lot of strain off your offense because you don't have to do as much to score points, whether it be touchdowns or field goals. You get 20 yards and you're already borderline in scoring position. So that's something that obviously reared its head tonight with the big time punt return, but also Jayden Reed had a 41-yard kick return that I'm sure Michigan State coaches and the offense really really appreciated. Let me see. I think that's kind of all we have. I know Michigan State had the blocked kick. So again, not necessarily Coughlin's fault. Coughlin's had a rough year this year kicking. Made the kick he needed to at the end. Granted, it was only 20 yards or something, but made that kick and then had the other one blocked. So hopefully he can get on track a bit. Just because it's been a rough year. I think before today he was 2 of 5 on field goals on the year. And today it was obviously 3 and 4, but the miss wasn't his fault. But all the kicks that he made were pretty short. I think the longest kick he made was 27 yards. So I guess that's a thing that you want to work on too, right? Is your red zone offense, because it's cool that your kicker is 3 for 3, but you'd rather his 3 for 3 be from 40, 45, and 50. You don't want to be kicking 27-yard field goals, because that means you stalled out inside the red zone, and then you feel like you're giving points away. Or sometimes you can get a drive and you kick a field goal, and you can kind of feel like you're stealing points. If you get into the red zone and you have to start settling for field goals, then you feel like you're giving those away. So I think that's really all the takes that we have on the game today. Michigan State's next opponent here, let me pull up the schedule, Western Kentucky next week. One thing I'll say, man, is don't be counting that as I wouldn't say count that as an easy game, because Western Kentucky really likes to throw the ball. I'm not sure what they did today, but at least coming into the day, they've been averaging like 450 passing yards a game or something like that. So maybe read up a bit on Western Kentucky if you're interested, because again they do like to sling it, and Michigan State has had a problem in the secondary, and even when they were winning, they were rotating guys in the secondary, because they essentially just didn't trust their corners and didn't have the horses there. Today Charles Brantley, I believe is a true freshman, got in the game, and if you're ever playing a true freshman corner, your secondary is probably in pretty bad shape. And they're just trying to find the guys there, and they haven't yet. And I think a team like Western Kentucky, while they don't have the talent that Michigan State does, just with them throwing the ball and like the play designs that they can come up with, having like 4 and 5 wide receiver sets consistently, that can cause a problem if your guys aren't able to cover them. Because even if you have all the talent, if one person is running open every play, all it takes is them to get them the ball, and then the drives to keep moving. So I do think next week will be a pretty good test for Michigan State. And if you're a Spartan fan, maybe expect another nail biter. Hopefully not overtime again, but I'd expect more of a Nebraska game than like a Northwestern or Youngstown State game. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully Michigan State can blow the doors off them. But just kind of, someone in here said styles make fights, and I am a little bit concerned about the Western Kentucky style, if I'm going to be honest. One style you should not be concerned about is the Sports Carnage podcast style. Those links will be in the description on YouTube after this. And if you guys are watching me on Facebook right now, go to your phone, pull up Spotify, type in Sports Carnage Podcast. That's where you'll find us. We're also on Apple Podcasts if you have an iPhone, as well as Podbean if you're rocking with Podbean like I was for many, many years before I switched over to some of these other podcast servers. So make sure you guys check those out on your preferred podcast platform, Sports Carnage Podcast. Follow us on our social medias, Sports Carnage, which you can see in the description here, description below if you're on YouTube. And tomorrow we will be back for the Lions reaction and with their game against the Baltimore Ravens, which I'm sure is going to go just swell for the home team here. So I am Ryan, again, from the Sports Carnage Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. And if you were with me earlier for the Michigan reaction, thank you for joining me for that one as well. I do appreciate it, and I like interacting with you guys. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you got all the way to the end, again, thank you. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button there, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you.